Hi guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to do a follow-up from yesterday because yesterday I did a story on the channel about Lori Vallow Daybell because she was arrested in Hawaii after she had been avoiding talking with authorities related to her children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan. The arrest in Hawaii followed a months-long investigation where police in Rexburg, Idaho, were trying to locate two of her children, and she and her husband, Chad, had left Idaho when a welfare check on the children had been made. They were found in the end of January, mid to late January, around January 25th, on the island of Kauai, and during that time, police executed a warrant and a search warrant on their townhouse, on the car that they were driving, and on their persons. During that time, she was given 5 days. A warrant was issued by Rexburg police to go to Idaho and to turn over her children to Department of Human Services in the state of Idaho. She had 5 days. After those 5 days came and went, she never did appear in Idaho with her children. Following that, there was a lot of speculation about what is going on. Why hasn't anyone done anything? What's going on? Where is she? Why isn't anything happening? Well, finally on Thursday, Kauai Police Department announced the arrest along with a $5 million bail for Lori. Chad, her husband, was detained in Hawaii, but he was not arrested. Yesterday in court, she sat before a judge to hear the charges before her and to discuss not only her bail, but whether or not she would be extradited to the state of Idaho. Lori has decided that she is going to fight extradition at this time, and she and her attorneys attempted to get her bail reduced, but due to the fact that she has moved around frequently and the fact of the interference and non-cooperation in the investigation, the judge did not agree, and the bail remains at $5 million. While they fight extradition, she will have to remain in Hawaii before she gets back to Idaho, where they will formally charge her with the crimes. Interestingly, though, during the same time, court documents began to get leaked online. What actually was in the investigation? One of the biggest issues that was going on with the public was, why is nothing happening? Why does it seem like these children have been missing since September? Why, in fact, are the police doing nothing? The public was beginning to get frustrated, believing that the police department in Idaho had really dropped the ball and that they weren't doing what they needed to do to get Lori. Well, now an affidavit, which was actually uploaded by a local register, an Idaho paper, and I downloaded, will provide us a lot more details about what steps these officers took in order to get to the place where they were charging her with multiple felonies along with some misdemeanors. Now, here is what we have. So, yesterday, an affidavit was actually released, and this is from the county of Madison County. Now, before the affidavit, there's actually the arrest information where they have all of the details for certificate of service and the original arrest affidavit, which has her being charged with desertion of a non-support of a dependent under 18. 2 of those charges, arrest and seizure, resisting and obstructing of officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime, and contempt of court, criminal with willful disobedience or court process or order. So that was the order for the arrest. And then the affidavit in which the detective filed in court an order to arrest her kind of outlines all steps that were taken. And interestingly here, it notes that, here's what it says for an example. On the afternoon of November 25th, 2019, the Rexburg Police Department was contacted by Gilbert, Arizona Police Department about a missing child, herein designated as JV, date of birth 5/25/2012. JV is a 7-year-old boy with autism who is supposed to be living with his adopted mother, Lori Noreen Vallow, aka Lori Noreen Daybell. JV's grandmother, Kay Woodcock, and contacted the Gilbert Police Department about JV for a welfare check. Lori Vallow also has a daughter named TR, as described further in this affidavit. While RPD was investigating the disappearance of JV, the investigation grew to include searches for TR is also missing, has not been seen since September 8th. So they say that I'm aware that Lori Vallow moved to Rexburg with our JV near the first week of September. I'm aware that JV was enrolled for 3 weeks at Kennedy Elementary School in Rexburg, Idaho. I am further aware that he was seen by his neighbors and near his apartment in Rexburg. Through the investigation, RPD has also learned that the last day JV was seen alive was September 23rd, 2019 at Kennedy Elementary School. On September 24th, 2019, Lori Vallow informed the school that JV would no longer be attending Kennedy Elementary and that Lori would homeschool him. Kennedy Elementary has informed RPD that no other school had made requests for JV's school transcripts. So they say the best that they can assess at this point was he was last seen on September 24th. They say that she contacted Gilbert, Arizona and Chandler, Arizona police departments, requested to help obtain search warrants for a vehicle in Lori's possession. The vehicle was actually related to a shooting that had occurred with Brandon Boudreaux in Arizona. And this was actually the car that was driven by Tylee. And that car it says, said vehicle was related to a possible blah, blah, blah of Lori's niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux, in Arizona. I'm aware that Detective Ray Hermosillo had also performed intermittent surveillance on Lori Vallow at the request of the Gilbert Police Department starting on November 1st, 2019. Detective Hermosillo reports that he has never once seen JV when he was performing surveillance during the month of November. The vehicle mentioned in paragraph 6 was a 2018 Jeep Wrangler, and said vehicle is actually registered to Charles Vallow, who is now deceased. Lori and Charles were in the process of getting a divorce when he died. The Gilbert Police Department was interested in this vehicle because it had been identified in an attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux in Gilbert, Arizona on October 2nd. Brandon had previously been married to Lori Vallow's niece, Melanie. At the time of the shooting, Brandon witnessed the Jeep, which he recognized as being the same vehicle that Tylee regularly drove. Brandon observed a rifle with a silencer come out of the window of the Jeep, and when Brandon's then vehicle was shot once in the front driver's door frame. As Brandon drove away, the Jeep followed, but eventually turned a different direction. The same Jeep observed by Brandon was seized pursuant to a search warrant in November in Rexburg, Idaho. It's significant that the vehicle that Tylee was regularly driving was still in Rexburg nearly 2 months after the last time she was seen. So basically they find a car and they don't find her. I'm aware through the contact of Chandler police report that Lori's husband, Charles Vallow, was shot on November 26, 2019. Detective Hermosillo and Detective Hope for RPD went to Lori's home located on this road, blah, blah, blah. Chad acted like he didn't know Lori very well and stated he didn't know her phone number. And then Alex, her brother, told detectives that JB was with his grandma, Kay Woodcock, in Louisiana, which was not going to be true because Kay was the individual who first called in a missing child report. Can you believe that? So these people they find the car that was Tylee's car, and she's not there. When they get to Idaho to actually perform the welfare check, they say he's with the woman that called for the check. Are you freaking kidding me? Other things that are a part of this are Detective Hermosillo called me again to indicate that he saw Chad Daybell driving a black Chevrolet Equinox away from the residence. He then asked Chad if he had seen JJ, and he responded that the last time he had seen him, he was in apartment 107 in October. He also admitted that he knew Lori and her phone number, and he provided that to the detective. So first he says he doesn't know who Lori is, barely knows who she is, doesn't have her phone number. And then he says, oh, I do have her phone number. Here you go. And I saw him the last time was in October, and it's November by now. This is insane. Then they say that they go to her apartment, and she told them that he was actually in Gilbert, Arizona with her friend named Melanie Gibb. So they try to get her number from Lori, and they ended their contact with Lori so they could actually contact Melanie Gibb so they could follow up on that leave. Well, they're actually not able to even get in contact with Melanie, and she says when they go back to Lori and say, we're not able to get in contact with Melanie, and she's like, well, they're just at a movie right now, so that's why they're not answering the phone. Well, they finally actually get in touch with her because they say by the 26th they hadn't heard from her. So they went to at 9:30 that evening, the Gilbert Police Department goes to her house, Melanie's house, and Detective Pillar contacted her by phone, and she stated that he was not staying with her in Arizona, had not been there for several months. So Melanie says, they're not here. I don't know what you're talking about. But wait, then Melanie says that she informs the officer that both Chad and Lori contacted her that same day and asked her to lie to police and tell them that she had JJ with her. So they wanted Melanie to conspire with them and lie and throw off this investigation and search for the kids. Unbelievable. So then they say that Lori delays the investigation into the whereabouts by requiring us to take time to investigate that, which was false. They also did search warrants on the 27th, and that's when they realized that Lori was gone, and so was Chad. They say that all the apartments are part of the same complex. He has not located none of his, they don't find anything for JJ, not one thing. They say that everything, all the clothing in Lori's apartment had been removed. The furniture was still inside. They believed she had left Rexburg with Chad on the night of the 26th. During the search of her apartment, they found evidence that he had been prescribed a specific medication to help with some of the side effects of autism. But when they looked at it and they looked through it, they realized it hadn't actually been filled since January of 2019. So a child with a prescription that he needed to take didn't have that medication, which was another clue to them that something was going on here. They also say that they served a warrant on a storage unit on the 27th. They found blankets with pictures of JJ on it, a blanket with Tylee on it, a backpack with his initials, toys that were appropriate for JJ's age, winter clothing, children's clothing, bikes, a scooter, and a photo album. They also find a credit and debit card that Lori had provided to Self Storage Plus. That was actually declined on January 2nd, 2020. So the owner of Self Storage they report that to the law enforcement. They reach out to Lori by phone, text, email, and they don't hear back from her. So she has not attempted to provide any other debit credit cards to Self Storage Plus. Soon after they execute the warrant, they find JJ at the apartments in after they execute the warrants to find him, Gilbert police asked us if we had any record of Tylee being in Rexburg. Tylee is her oldest daughter, and that's from her marriage with Joseph Ryan, who passed away a previous year before. So Tylee has a brother whose name is Colby Ryan, and they say that Gilbert Police Department has been in contact with Colby, and Colby had reported to them that the last time he had actually spoken to Tylee was on August 30th. So he informs Gilbert that he had tried to contact her after August 30th, but Lori would always give them excuses as to why Tylee couldn't talk on the phone to him. They also, through the investigation, they find out that Tylee was with her when she moved to Rexburg with Lori. They were informed that Lori told Melanie Gibb that Tylee was attending classes at BYU, Idaho, but they checked all of the records and she isn't attending that school. Lori Vallow moved to an apartment, and this was actually corroborated by Lori Vallow's neighbors, and they actually saw Tylee and JJ on the 1st and the 2nd. They say they saw Tylee at or around the resident when she moved in with Lori. They also helped her move into the apartment. They saw Tylee briefly a couple times after she moved in and had not seen her since the first couple weeks of September. They said their son played with JJ multiple times. These same neighbors went to Lori's apartment sometime in late September to play with JJ, and the child was informed. So their son goes over to the house, and the child is informed by Lori that he wasn't there and that he had gone to stay with his grandma, which was, again, not true. So another neighbor says who lived sort of directly across the courtyard, says that had actually had a doorbell camera that recorded JJ playing outside on September 17th. So they have footage of him playing outside of the apartment on September 17th, 2019. They were able to determine that through phone records that Tylee had accompanied Lori and Alex and JJ on a trip to Yellowstone National Park on September 8th. They obtained a photograph of Tylee at the park entrance through the National Park Service. And although service of the search warrant, RPD was obtained a photo from Lori Vallow's iCloud account that showed Tylee with her at Yellowstone National Park. And it was time-stamped of September 8th, 2019. But they say they can't find any record of Tylee after September 8th. So the last time someone sees JJ is September 24th, and the last time someone sees Tylee is September 8th. So then this is where it gets crazy. So they take off and they flee and they go to Kauai on the same time that they get a warrant, and they figure out that they took a flight through American Airlines on September 27th, and they go to Hawaii. They are currently living at they were currently living at a unit in Kauai, Hawaii. They actually contacted the police there, who had monitored the condo, and they say that they, like, the entire time they had been there and been monitoring them, they had never saw any sort of indication that the children were with them at all, and no children had ever checked in with them, no children were staying with them. They never saw a thing. They also say that they had surveillance camera of Chad and Lori in Kauai. So the police department said that he had seen Lori and Chad at least 3 times since he was made aware that they were on Kauai, and that not once had he seen the children. On December 20th, they published a press release that announces that they're missing and they're looking for them, and they're asking the public to locate them. And then since December 20th, the case was received national media attention. Lori has refused to provide any law enforcement with any information regarding to her children. They also learned that Lori used the website care.com to find a babysitter for JJ. So she finds this babysitter, tells the babysitter that she needs this babysitter for, like, ongoing care, but then abruptly is told that on September 24th, she reaches out to this babysitter and says, "I don't need you anymore. JJ's with his grandma for a few weeks, so we're done. This relationship's over." So at this point, they know that the last time the babysitter saw him was on the 23rd. They know after the 24th, no one has ever seen him since. Chad and Lori actually get married on November 5th. They obtain photos of their wedding, which I showed you yesterday. And they begin sort of working through the court to find any sort of action. And so on January 16th, child protection action was filed by the state of Idaho and Madison County for both the kids. The court ordered that she produce them within 5 days of service of the order to the Rexburg Police Department or Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. She was served on January 25th, and she never showed up so she was in contempt. She never brought the kids. So it says that they had, on the dates between the 24th and the 29th, they fly down to Hawaii. So the Idaho police go down to Hawaii, and they said they reviewed video of Lori being served, and she's filmed by the Kauai Police Department. They were not seen, the children were not seen in the video. While they were there was 2 FBI agents with them, Rory Johnson and Douglas McLeod. They assisted in performing surveillance, and those people never saw JJ or Tylee either. That on the afternoon of the 26th, they say they serve search warrants on Chad and Lori and on a black Ford Explorer that they rented, and they were served with them in a parking lot. And when they were served with them, they find the following items: a birth certificate for Tylee and JJ, Tylee's financial transaction card issued by BBVA, so her credit card. They find JJ's iPad with his initials on it. They find another iPad which was logged into JJ's Apple account, and they find his school registration receipts from Kennedy Elementary in Rexburg. They also find Tylee's phone. So They said that the card that they found of Tylee was with Lori, but she had been using it as Tylee. On January 26th, they served the person and vehicle of Chad and Lori Daybell. The search warrant was served on the condominium as well. They say in the garage of the condominium, there were 2 beach chairs, lawn chairs, yoga mats, beach towels. There was absolutely nothing that would identify any sort of child staying with them. There was no clothing, no toys, nothing that would suggest that a 7-year-old boy was there. They also said that they find out that Lori gets rid of his service dog, which he had been using for autism, and she got rid of the dog on August 30th. So then this is the craziest part. They call up Chad Daybell's parents, okay? And they want to find out if they've heard anything from Chad about the kids. And they say that Chad Daybell's parents say that Chad and Lori told them in November that Lori was an empty nester. They also interviewed Jason and Samantha Williams, and she is the sister of the deceased Tammy Daybell. And she actually informed RPD that Chad told them that Lori had no juvenile children. So his wife, Tammy, tells his sister-in-law that she doesn't even have any kids. He tells his parents that she's an empty nester. They get a tip on February 16th that they are seen leaving from Kauai to Maui, where they spend a couple days. During that trip, JJ and Tylee are not seen. They reviewed Lori's bank and financial statements. There was no information found which would suggest that she was actually providing money to anyone that was caring for JJ or Tylee. They found no evidence or verification of anyone providing housing, food, clothing, education, medical care, or JJ since September 24th and Tylee since September 8th. So all the money stops in September for the kids, suggesting that they're gone, right? So it says as of today, the kids are still missing. So due to all of that, they say that she's the legal parent of that. Nobody has verifiably heard from Tylee since September 8th, since JJ since September 23rd. She has been living in the island of Kauai since the beginning of December 2019. The condominium currently occupied by Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow contains no evidence that children were living there. The medication prescribed to JJ has not been refilled. Her financial transaction card is in the possession of Lori. Lori and Chad Daybell have represented to Chad's family that Lori has no juvenile children. Lori claimed that she was going to be homeschooling him, but she's not with him, and there's no other educational facility that has him or has his records. There's no verification of another caregiver for JJ or Tylee that has been found. And then on January 30th, Lori Vallow failed to comply with the court order. So based on all of that, they say that she has met the different requirements because of abandoning a child. She has falsely provided information to the police. They say they have probable cause that she tried to influence Melanie into conspiring with her. They believe she's a flight risk because, according to them, Chad Daybell actually received $430,000 in life insurance after Tammy passed away in October. So that's how the whole thing came to be. So they have a lot of evidence suggesting that these kids are no longer on this planet. They just don't know where they are. Nobody's taking care of them. No money's going out by them. They're acting like the kids don't exist. They're telling conflicting stories to everyone. And in the middle of all of this, there are also 2 spouses. Lori's spouse, Charles, who passes away in July, and then Chad's wife, Tammy, who suddenly passes away in October. He gets a humongous payout for her death. They get married 5 days later. They're playing, like, they're hula dancing on the beach, acting like nothing happens. The kids are gone. And then as everything is sort of ramping up in December, you've got her brother suddenly dying in Arizona. Not to mention you have Tylee's car, which was apparently part of a drive-by shooting. So there's a lot out here. Like, I think they are probably working towards this being a recovery versus actually finding the children alive. Sadly, it seems as though because no one's seen them and because nobody's caring for them, that it's probable to believe, I would assume, based on these documents, that the police don't believe that the children are alive. Very sad. Now, Lori will be fighting extradition. It's unbelievable that you can think that nothing's happening behind the scenes, but this is sort of an example of the very meticulous steps that the police have to take to actually secure and receive the warrants and get the arrests. So, as heartbreaking and as frustrating it has probably been for family and for all of the nation wanting to know where these kids are, at least the authorities have been working diligently to figure all of this out, and hopefully, this will bring some resolution to this case. The grandmother, Kay, has been asking Lori now, like, please talk, please speak, tell us where they are. And Lori just has not been saying anything. There's still no word on what's going to happen with Chad. There has not been any arrests made. The autopsy results of his wife, Tammy, have not come back yet. They did exhume her body. So it seems as though they're trying to tie up all of this and fit all of these different loose ends together into one specific thing. But family members and friends that know them say they were involved in an organization that was preparing for the end of the world, and neither one of them had any sort of care or concern about people dying. She had made threats to Charles about him dying. She told a friend at one point that she believed her husband would end up dead within the next, weeks at that point. So there's a lot to suggest here that Tammy and Chad conspired together, and all of these people that are gone are a result of their activities. Why, how, and where this all, like, their motives and how this is all connected, and if it'll all get connected to them, that remains unseen. But there was an FBI agent that was actually speaking to one of the news outlets, and they said these are probably the first of many charges that will be brought against Lori Daybell, and probably the biggest ones they could bring at this point to get her into Idaho and to get her detained so that they can actually talk to her and have her behind bars. So as we learn more, I will certainly bring that out to you, but I thought this one was interesting. All right, you guys, I'll be back in a little while. Bye, guys.